Well, the subject of this particular discussion is how I feel about change, question and answer. Now, you've got a choice. I can ask you questions or you can ask me questions. Which one would you like? Okay, let me ask you a question. What do you think, if you're going to accept God's view of love and be educated by God in love, what do you think is going to have to change?
What was the question?
I'm not going to repeat it. Alex, thank you.
Your desire for love.
Yep, but can we say what else? Like, there's a lot of things, isn't there? Can I just put it in one word? Everything. That's all. You know, I love that because it means that even your attitudes will change, your beliefs will change, the way you think will change, the way you feel will change, the interactions with other people will change, the way you live your life will change, the choices you make will change, and your future will change, obviously through all of these different choices you're making. Just everything will change, right? Now, for most people, you know, that's pretty frightening. Because what happens in this world today is we get this level of comfort that grows within us. Once we feel we've got our partner and we feel we've got our life that we planned for ourselves, and we feel that we've got our financial situation a bit nice and secure, and we feel that we've got, you know, the car we want and the 2 children that we wanted and the house with a picket fence or whatever it is that we aimed for, and once we feel like we've got the travel we wanted and all these different things, we sort of go like, oh, my life's starting to feel quite nice now for the most part. And so we start resisting any further changes. We forget, actually, don't we, that we've had to change in order to accept all of those other things. But now that we've gotten to what we believe is our ideal, so this is an issue, is the way we see what our ideal actually is. Once we believe we've reached or closely approximated our ideal, we then believe that we should now stop changing. We develop a level of comfort in where we currently are at that point, and then we choose to no longer make further changes. That's what we choose to do, unfortunately. Now, God wants you to understand that actually your change will be infinite and also potentially universal in its effects. And God wants you to change beyond your wildest imagination or your wildest dreams. God wants you to be able to continue changing even beyond all that. And this is the problem with resisting change, is that we get to a point where we sort of have a build-up where we allow change, and then it's not like this. And you know what starts to happening then? Yeah, and you know why that downhill process occurs? It's because we've now allowed fear for such a long time to dominate our lack of change that the fear builds up and now causes its own negative effects. And so our life starts to degrade. So this is why many of you are nostalgic. You know that feeling? A longing for the past? Because there was a period in your life where you thought you had the ideal, and now you long back for that ideal because things have gotten worse since. Not understanding that the reason why things have gotten worse since is because you decided to try to maintain that ideal rather than continuing further change. Yeah? Yeah. So, Alex, no? Let's go to Joanne, up the back, and Natalie. You need to stand up for that's it.
Okay. Given that our comfortable life is probably mostly, if not all, addictions. Do we need to make those changes and then we can proceed? Or can we just say, oh, well, if I just start to proceed, I will allow these changes to happen?
Well, it's like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, isn't it, is really the question you're asking.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, and remember we mentioned that there were four particular things in the previous discussion that I gave you that we were going to need to develop if constant change was going to be maintained. Can you remember those four things?
Yes. Truth. was
Truth,
one.
yeah.
Faith.
Faith, yeah.
Someone said action.
Action, yeah. And feeling some emotion, aren't we?
Yes.
Now, can I give you maybe an illustration of that from your own childhood?
Yes.
Right. When you were really little, like probably between 6 to 12 months of age, most of you can't remember that time because our brain is yet to really formulate memories of those particular experiences, but your family will tell you this anyway, even if you don't believe what I'm saying to you. In between that time, you look around yourself and within yourself a longing or a desire grows to get more mobile than crawling. Doesn't it?
Yes.
You see that in all children. They want to be more mobile than just crawling around on the ground.
Yeah.
Because standing up and being able to run and jump and do all these other things looks a lot more interesting, doesn't it? You notice that? Like, imagine if you were still crawling on the ground.
Yeah.
Besides getting dirty hands as well as dirty feet, obviously you're not upright. You're not being out. You haven't got freedom of mobility. It's a very much a limited way of moving yourself. You can't run, so therefore you can't move more quickly. You're quite limited in your speed of movement as well as your agility. There's quite a lot of limitations, including the limitation that you can't actually stand upright, which means you can't balance and you can't reach for higher things and so forth. There's a whole set of limitations. Now, the child doesn't think about any of that, does it? It just looks at the environment around and goes, everybody's standing up but me. Right? And it feels drawn through this desire to stand, to become more mobile.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so and you can sit down if you like, because I don't think I think you guys have got a shot. So here we are. We're more upwardly mobile. We want to be more upwardly mobile, and so the child does that very first thing, of wobble, dragging itself up by, usually something a bit soft, but not always, and then getting into an upright position, right, and then sometimes falling over flat on its face. Now, what does it do then? It cries its lungs out because it hurt itself, right? Cries its lungs out for 5 minutes, usually. Usually it's not very long, unless it's really badly hurt itself. It's not very long. But it's pretty intense when it's doing it, isn't it? It's like screaming instead of crying its lungs out, needs a bit of a nurse usually, whatever. Goes through the process of allowing itself to feel what it felt like getting injured. And then 5 minutes later, it's like it never happened. Because what does it do? It stands up again. Wobble, 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 right? But this time a bit more stability generally, right? And then it starts to take a step, falls flat on its face. What happens then? Cries and cries and cries its eyes out again, right? For 5 minutes or 10 minutes or how long it takes to recover from it. And then what does it do? Silly thing. It gets up again, right? And it keeps doing that, and it usually will do that over a period of a few days, and within a few days it's walking. Usually a week or so after that process, walking. Interesting, that process, isn't it? In terms of what we can learn from that process. So what is the process if we analyse that process? The child has a desire and faith that it can eventually stand just like the adults do. That's what it has. It believes it. It believes it even before it does it. And the reason why it believes it is because everybody else is doing it which is proof that the belief has validity. It has value. Does that make sense? If everyone was still crawling around on their hands and knees, it would take a especially unique child to stand up under those circumstances. But because everybody around it is standing up, it obviously knows for certain that it can. So it does try to attempt it, even though it's never attempted it before. I'll just run this off because I just want to write down the summary of the process. The first part of the process is therefore desire. And the other part of that process of having desire is faith that it can be achieved. You follow? Now, the faith isn't based on some whimsical imagination. It's based on the fact that other people are doing it right in front of it. So, of course, it's got some faith that it can be done. It has a confidence it can be done. It has so much confidence that it feels that it can do it itself. The child can do it itself. Right? Now, these are all feelings without any thought going on, really, by the child, isn't it? They're all just feelings. Just that it feels that it can do it, so it gets up and tries it. Makes an effort. So what does it do? It takes some action. Right? Okay, takes the action, falls flat on its face. What does it do then? Expresses its emotion completely. Now, the reason why it can get up and take another action is because it releases the emotion and it's allowed to release the emotion. Almost every parent enjoys the child getting up to walk. Right? It's a feeling of progress on the part of the child. In fact, nowadays it's like video movies of the whole event. Right? That's how important it is because all of us as parents think this is a wonderful moment in the child's life when it's learning to walk. So there's very little negative emotional projection at the child and therefore no impediment towards the child learning to walk. So it takes an action, falls flat on its face, and the parent feels sorry for the child, so it's allowed to feel its emotion. It's allowed to have a good cry about the fact that it just hurt itself, just like I nearly did, and it's allowed to process through that emotionally. It's allowed to, so it does. So it has a big cry, big emotional release. You imagine if it didn't have the emotional release for a moment. It'd be from then on carrying the concept that it's going to get hurt walking, and then it's probably not going to try to walk. And then its desire would have to be greater than that, greater than the fear, before it would try again. Does that make sense? But here we are, so it feels its emotion, falls flat on its face, cries its eyes out, and because it's cried its eyes out, the memory of the pain of the event has gone. Isn't that interesting? And because the memory of the pain of the event is gone, it's like the child never had the experience. So it gets up again and has another go. And it's allowed to. The parents let it make mistake after mistake after mistake, don't they? In order to get to learn to walk. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He's allowed to get it wrong. He's even allowed to have a few dangerous moments till he gets it right. Right? He's even allowed to have that. He's allowed to go through some things that terrify mum and dad even sometimes in order to learn to walk. So he's allowed to go through the emotional and physical experience of growth. Agreed? Yeah? Is there any questions about that? If we go to Ivana maybe over here.
Just with you talking before about the child learning to walk and having faith because people around, like everyone else is walking. Do you mean if just say people didn't walk and they were crawling, that the child would be less likely to actually try to get up and walk?
For many millennia, in fact, people did that, like 120,000 years ago.
Yep.
Yep, took a while before there were some brave enough souls to change outside of the norm. Yeah. Okay.